Good afternoon. It's Thursday, November 20th. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke out today against discrimination of Israeli Arabs, saying there was no place for it in society. His remarks followed the announcement by the mayor of Ashkelon banning Arabs from working at the city's preschools out of concern for the children's safety during the current wave of terror. Here with more is Eli Wagelander.
Good evening. Prime Minister Netanyahu issued a statement this morning saying there is no room for discrimination against Israel's Arab population. We cannot generalize an entire population because of a small minority that is violent. The vast majority of Israeli Arab citizens are law-abiding, and we are acting resolutely against those who break the law, who will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Netanyahu's remarks were pointed at Ashkelon Mayor Itamar Shimoni's announcement yesterday that he would terminate construction of shelters at any preschool where Arab workers were employed. Interior Minister Gilad Erdan characterized the move as unacceptable and instructed ministry officials to investigate its legality. I understand the worries of the mayor and the citizens, Erdan said, but they should leave the task of restoring security to the military and police. Economy Minister Naftali Bennett said the overwhelming majority of Israeli Arabs are loyal to the State of Israel. They want to integrate. We see rising numbers of them joining national service and women going to work. The Mosawa Center, which advocates for Arab civil rights, said that it would sue Ashkelon's mayor for his decision, saying the move was patently illegal according to the Equal Opportunities Law. Shimoni told Army Radio this morning that it was a temporary measure which he does not regret. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, police beefed up security around the city following Tuesday's synagogue massacre that killed 5, and officials discussed posting armed guards outside preschools. Some 24 volunteer reservist soldiers in the Navy's elite Shayetet 13 Naval Commando Unit will join civil guards in Jerusalem. Netanyahu vowed last night to continue to demolish homes of families of East Jerusalem terrorists responsible for the murder of Jews in the past few weeks. We will not tolerate attacks on our citizens, Netanyahu said, and we will act against those who perpetrate these attacks and against those who engaged in incitement. With a determined and vigorous hand, we will restore security to Jerusalem. The State Department was not pleased.
We've made it clear that all sides have to work together to lower tensions, and we believe that punitive home demolitions are counterproductive in an already tense situation. This is a practice, I would remind, that the Israeli government itself discontinued in the past, recognizing its effects. So I would say that once again that we believe this is a time for leadership and for all sides to take steps to calm tensions.
The State Department also criticized the announcement that the Jerusalem Local Planning and Building Committee approved the construction of 78 new homes in 2 Jerusalem Jewish neighborhoods. Laura?
Thank you, Ali. After failing to denounce any of the attacks against Israelis during a wave of terror, the United Nations Security Council last night condemned in the strongest manner what it terms as the despicable terrorist attack at a Jerusalem synagogue. The Council expressed condolences to the families of all those who have died and sympathy to those injured and to the Israeli people. Ambassador to the UN, Ron Prosser, said in response that it was disappointing that only once Israelis are slaughtered at prayer, the Security Council remembers to break its silence on Palestinian violence. The UN also urged all sides to work immediately to restore the calm.
Clashes between Palestinian youth and Israeli security forces continue on a nearly daily basis in many parts of East Jerusalem and the West Bank. The Secretary General condemns all acts of violence against civilians. Attacks against religious sites in Jerusalem and the West Bank point to an additional dangerous dimension to the conflict which reverberates far beyond the region. The steadily worsening situation on the ground only reinforces the imperative for leaders on both sides to make the difficult decisions that will promote stability and ensure long-term security for both Israelis and Palestinians.
The streets of the Arab neighborhoods of Jerusalem have been seething for months. Heavy Israeli security presence, combined with religious fervor and incitement, have created a volatile situation. IBA's Ariel Sullivan examined the source of frustration in East Jerusalem and filed this report.
Disenfranchised, cut off from the Palestinian Authority, and now subjected to heavy Israeli security and a crackdown on lawbreakers, the Arab residents of East Jerusalem have emerged at the forefront of the current wave of terror and violence against Israel.
If you go around in the city of Jerusalem, you will find the municipality and the police everywhere giving tickets to everybody, every car, everyone, for reason, without reason. And they think that by pressuring the people, they will calm them down. And it's the opposite. By pressuring the people react violently against the oppression.
Since the volatile summer, there are nearly daily clashes between Arabs and police forces in the city. So far, all of the recent bloody terrorist attacks in the capital, from the vehicular strikes on passengers waiting for the light rail to the stabbing attacks and the slaughter at the Har Nof synagogue, have been carried out by Arab residents of East Jerusalem and not from the territories, as was common in the past. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has put the blame on Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, saying he incited the violence. Israel has demolished the home of one terrorist and 5 more slated for destruction. The government has dramatically boosted security forces in Arab neighborhoods of East Jerusalem and along the seam line to prevent further attacks.
Police might be necessary, more barricades might be necessary, but to really deal with the problem, we have to deal with the political problem that's here. We have a situation where Jerusalem is a divided city, although it's claimed to be united. Palestinians, 360,000 Palestinians live in East Jerusalem, all of them threatened always with the fear that they'll lose their right to live in the city. Many of them have lost their right to live in the city. 80% of the people there are living under the poverty line. There's no horizon for a young Palestinian growing up in East Jerusalem. What's his dream? To be someone who's going to wash our cars in some Jewish-owned car wash place? I mean, what kind of hope do these people have? So this, and you put onto this the fears, the real fears that they have, that Israel has real intentions to take over Al-Aqsa, Haram al-Sharif, the Temple Mount, and destroy the mosques up there. This is not made up. They really believe this.
Palestinian journalist Ziad Abu Zayad says it's incitement by Israeli officials and the heavy police presence that is fueling hatred among East Jerusalem Arabs.
I think the incitement is coming from people like Feiglin and like all the other fanatic Knesset members who go to make political demonstrations in Al-Aqsa, and they incite the Muslims, incite the Palestinians to react against them. So the incitement is coming from the side of the Israeli officials, and it's also from the practices of the officials in the street.
Some in Israel are saying it's Netanyahu himself who is fanning the flames.
And the Prime Minister is using this as sort of an election rally, or using it as to deflect some of the political things that are going on by fanning the flames, by talking about Israel's right on the Temple Mount and Israelis' right to pray, and building more settlements in response to terror attacks.
So what is needed is to calm down the situation in the city and to stop all these practices which has proved that they are a failure. They can't achieve the goal. And everybody should understand that Jerusalem is an occupied city, and there should be a political solution to the overall situation, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and to Jerusalem as the shared city.
Shared or not, reeling from the bloody terror attacks, reconciliation and coexistence are words that don't come easily to one's lips in this holy city, for now. Aryeh O'Sullivan for IBA News.
As attention is focused on Palestinian incitement following the massacre, this week one of the Palestinian channels put out its latest animated video in broken Hebrew praising the killing of Israelis. Let's take a look.
תסתכל ימינה, תסתכל שמאלה, תיזהר, מכונית מגיפה מכל עבר, אוספת אותך לקבר, רכב טוען דוהר לכיוונך, וממהר נוסע לנפשך.
The volatile security situation in the country has brought about the cancellation of the highly anticipated and contentious soccer game between Beitar Jerusalem, known for its right-wing fans, and the Arab run Bnei Sachnin. Despite massive efforts to secure the game, set for Sunday, police today issued an order to close Doha Stadium due to what they termed a non-sufficient escape route, which was not an asphalt road, one of the extraordinary requirements that had been demanded to make sure that the match passed without riots. Sachnin management is reportedly furious with the decision, saying, "We're not a building company, and we can't be expected to asphalt and light a new road." adding that apparently the police had just never wanted the game in Doha Stadium in the first place. Things were expected to be heated amid the current wave of terror, making this encounter even more charged than their usual matches, which have seen frequent, often violent clashes in the past. Security preparations for the game had been agreed upon, with more than 700 police officers and 230 security personnel to be deployed. Thousands of well-wishers from around the country went to the Druze village of Yanuch in the western Galilee yesterday to pay their last respects to policeman Zidan Seif, who died from gunshot wounds as he battled the terrorists. The funeral was attended by many dignitaries, including President Reuven Rivlin, who called Zidan, who left behind a wife and 4-month-old baby, one of the noble sons of the state who sacrificed his life to defend others. Rivlin also gave several interviews throughout the day to press the need to overcome hatred and encourage coexistence. The funeral was also attended by numerous Haredim who organized buses to take them to the village to pay their respects.
I didn't come to influence people. I came because I felt it's a way to personally express thanks and gratitude for a man who sacrificed his life and saved Jews. Together with dozens of members of the Haredi public, we are going to pay our final respects to the officer that sacrificed himself for the sanctification of God's name, and joined with the Jewish people, served in the Israeli police, and gave his life to rescue worshippers. Who knows what would have happened if he hadn't come in at the right moment and stopped those scoundrels, Arab terrorists who broke in during Shacharit morning prayers. I think the little that we can give them is coming to the funeral of the one who served so many worshippers and tried to save them all. Unfortunately, we're going to his funeral instead of celebrating his release from the hospital. His story touched my heart. The fact that he left behind a young widow and a young baby really moved me. I sent my condolences to the family. And I think that by physically arriving at the funeral, we will create some kind of connection between the Haredi public and the Druze public, which has sealed a covenant of blood with the State of Israel.
Many politicians, including opposition and Labour Party leader Isaac Herzog, made a pilgrimage to the site of the massacre.
This is a very, very shocking testament to a horrible terror attack in a place of worship, where people come and pray to the Lord Almighty every morning, every evening. They are devout Jews who learn, who practice, who came here, and during the most kind of sensitive point of the prayer, when they stand and pray in silence, the terrorists came in to butcher them. And this is absolutely unacceptable, and I think the world should condemn it and unequivocally say that such acts of terror will not be allowed anywhere. This is part of what we are seeing regionally. However, I do believe that the tensions in Jerusalem are very high, that we are in a boiling hot situation, that we must lower the temper. On the one hand, by fierceful fight against terror with all the legal tools that we've got, and on the other hand, by being smart and sensitive, by extending hand and cooperating with the security forces of our neighbors as much as possible in order to contain, lower the flame, and move forward to a process which is so much needed.
Condemnations of the massacre continue to come in from around the world. In London, British Prime Minister David Cameron denounced the attack in an address to Parliament.
I'm sure the whole House will join me in condemning the senseless attack in a synagogue in West Jerusalem this week, where 5 people were killed. One of the victims was a dual Israeli-UK citizen, Rabbi Avraham Goldberg, and we send our deepest condolences to his family and friends, as well as to the families of the other victims. This was an appalling act of terror, and we condemn all acts of this kind.
I join the Prime Minister in paying tribute to Rabbi Avraham Goldberg, who was murdered in the horrific terrorist attack in Jerusalem, and the other victims. This was an appalling act, and all of my sympathies are with their families and friends.
The Spanish Parliament's symbolic and non-binding vote this week to urge their government to recognize Palestine as a state once a negotiated solution with Israel is reached to the conflict was denounced by the Netanyahu government as a further obstacle to actually making peace.
Telling the Palestinians that they can get what they want without making the very difficult compromises that we're both going to have to make. makes conflict resolution more difficult, not less difficult. And that's why we're disappointed. We don't have a difference of opinion in substance. We have a very real difference of opinion in process with the Spanish decision.
The remand of the terrorist who is suspected of stabbing to death IDF soldier Almog Shiloni at a Tel Aviv railway station last week has been extended by 6 more days. Police said the suspect was from Aqsa refugee camp in Nablus and had entered Israel illegally. He was found in the stairway of a nearby building when he reportedly fled the train station after killing Shiloni. The suspect's lawyer said that his actions were that of a desperate man.
It's the same old story that didn't change for the last years of the occupation. A young person looks for his future, cannot really find it, and then decides, as an accumulation of all different reasons, to go and hit a soldier. That's it.
Hamas has launched 4 rockets towards the sea in less than 24 hours. The IDF said that the launches were part of the Gazan terror group's testing and development of its artillery capabilities. International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Yokia Amano today told a meeting of the UN agency's 35-nation Board of Governors that Iran has again failed to provide explanations about its suspected nuclear weapons research. He made his remarks as representatives from Tehran and 6 world powers continued their meetings in Vienna today in the final push to reach a long-term accord over Iran's nuclear development program before the expiration of next Monday's self-imposed deadline. Amano said that the IAEA is far from satisfied and that the Islamic Republic has still failed to comply with obligations to provide information about explosive tests and other activity it agreed to turn over last August. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is set to join the closed-door talks in Switzerland today, aimed at ending the 12-year dispute over possible military dimensions of atomic development in the Islamic Republic in exchange for the lifting of devastating international sanctions. Israeli officials continue to insist that no deal is better than a bad one that would make possible a nuclear Iran.
Israel's very concerned. We're very concerned that a deal will be signed with Iran that will effectively leave it as a threshold nuclear power. Remember, Israel not only wants to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon today, we want to prevent Iran from having the capability to develop a nuclear weapon tomorrow. And we're concerned that Iran will be left with an advanced nuclear weapons-making capability that will enable them to make nuclear weapons in the future. We believe that the only good deal is a deal that will dismantle the sanctions in return for the full dismantling of Iran's military nuclear capability. That is not the deal that's on the table, and we're very concerned that a deal will be signed that will be a very, very bad deal, not just for Israel, but for all the Arabs in the region and ultimately for the entire world.
Thousands of Ethiopian Israelis from across the country made their way to the Armon HaNetziv promenade in the capital to celebrate the annual Sigt holiday. The holiday is marked 50 days after Yom Kippur to emphasize the centuries-long desire to return to Israel and as a renewal of the covenant between God and the Jewish people. A number of Kesim, or spiritual leaders from the Ethiopian Israeli community, presided over the event. The Sigt holiday symbolizes the longing of the Ethiopian Jewish community for Zion, their connection to Jerusalem, and their commitment to Jewish unity. Following afternoon prayers and the blowing of the shofar, participants end the holiday with a festive meal. In honor of the festival, the Central Bureau of Statistics reported that the Ethiopian population in Israel is 135,000. In sports news, and it's a gold medal for Israeli judoka Yarden Jerby at the Grand Prix Qingdao in China in the under 63 kilo category. The 25-year-old Israeli beat her Austrian competitor in the finals by ippon and went to the podium in first place. The 3-day Grand Prix attracts more than 200 judokas from 31 countries. Following the competition, Jerby expressed her happiness, writing on her Facebook page that after a long, difficult day, she was satisfied with the result. Jerby was the first Israeli to win a gold medal at the World Championship last year in Rio de Janeiro.
דגל ישראל, מקום ראשון, ולצידו, במקום השני, במקום השלישי, דגל יפן, זה כמו שנראה יום אחד במונדיאל.
Turning to arts and entertainment, fans of British pop singer James Blunt will be thrilled to hear he's coming to perform in Israel for the very first time. As part of the tour promoting his 4th album, Moon Landing, Blunt is set to take the stage at Tel Aviv's Nokia Arena on February 2nd, 2015. The singing sensation shot to fame back in 2006 with his smash hit You're Beautiful on his Back to Bedlam release that became one of the best-selling albums in the United Kingdom over the first decade of the millennium. Before becoming a performer, Blunt served in the British Army and joined NATO troops deployed in Kosovo. On a less pleasant note, a general labor strike is set to start on December 4th. That's a word from Histadrut chairman Avi Nissenkorn, who this week declared a work dispute demanding an increase in the minimum wage. This started the clock ticking on a 2-week cooling-off period to give a final chance for negotiations to resolve the dispute. Among the public bodies likely to strike are government ministries and other agencies in the public sector, such as the Tax Authority, the Airports Authority, the National Insurance Institute, and others. Taking a look at local finance, the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were down in the last day of the trading week. Here's a look at the late afternoon numbers. Turning to the weather, and temperatures will drop under partly cloudy skies. Rain is expected in the north of the country and will spread to the center. Here are the highs and lows for the next 24 hours. And that's all for this newscast. Please join us again tomorrow at this same time when Aaron Viner will be here with all the latest news from Israel. I'm Laura Cornfield, wishing you a great evening, a great weekend, and shalom from Jerusalem.